allow me to say, sorry, before you move on, allow me to say, SFA did not come in as something totally new. Okay. Yes, the framing was new, but it was not totally new in that we are already doing certain things. For example, in our African culture, we already have solution-focused programs. We had solution-focused stories. In Africa, stories are a way of empowering. So what it helped us now was to no longer focus on the negative side. So we're now selecting the stories, selecting the proverbs, selecting the games that were solution-focused, and we ran using those ones because it was now an interesting issue. As Drusilla is also alluding in the chat there where you were saying I was assisting here to understand in the local language. How was I doing it to make it better? We're utilizing what was already working within our own culture and context.
Yeah.
So that's the other interesting thing that SFA
really interesting. Yeah. So, welcome everybody. It's really wonderful to have the opportunity to be with you all this afternoon. So initially, just to introduce myself, my name's Tara Gretton, and I am a solution-focused practitioner in Bath in the UK, mainly working with children and young people in schools. So to start off, it would be lovely to hear from you all who you are and your role within the Youth to Youth programme.
I'm Irene Bush. I'm an art therapist, a solution-focused art therapist, and a consultant for psychosocial support. I worked for 22 years for Terre, Hommes Schweiz, and introduced the Youth to Youth program with the help of Therese and others.
Thank you.
Then I continue. I'm Therese Steiner. I'm a child and youth psychiatrist in Switzerland. Yes, and I started to introduce a solution-focused approach all over the world.
I'm Abu Bakr Mtoka. I'm working with Therese Hommes Schweiz in the national office in Tanzania as technical advisor for psychosocial support and youth participation. I'm a student of Irene and Therese in the solution-focused approach. And so I'm now kind of mentoring and working with the partner organizations in Tanzania to implement and integrate the solution-focused approach.
I'm Drusilla Meirelish, and as Abu, I am the technical advisor for youth participation and psychosocial support for Therese Hommes Schweiz, Mozambique. And I also learned everything I know in SFA from Therese and Irene. So my major role is to support our partner organizations on their methodologies and approach in psychosocial support, especially on the use of solution-focused approach.
My name is Mlungisi Nyati. I'm based in Harare. I'm the technical advisor with TDH Schweiz for Zimbabwe and South Africa. I'm also a proud, student, again, from Therese and Irene. They taught me the basics, the fulcrum of SFA. And then right now, as I continue to learn and join in SFA, is because of the rules that they gave me. So I'm also linked to my colleagues, Abu and Drusilla. My role is to support partners within Zimbabwe and South Africa in training, mainstreaming, and implementing SFA methodologies within our SRH GBV prevention work. That's all about me for now.
Thank you. So to start off with, I initially wanted to invite you to share an overview, a bit of an overview of the programme. So just when we first had a conversation, which I enjoyed very much, you talked about moving from knowing what is needed to working with what they want. So I'm just interested to hear about the project and the organisation as well.
Maybe I can start with the organisation because, of course, not everyone knows Terre, Hommes Schweiz. Terre, Hommes Schweiz is a development aid agency based in Switzerland since 1960, and it's politically and denominationally neutral, and works in 10 countries in Latin America and Africa. And Terre, Hommes Schweiz works with local partners in these countries and with youth. You know, youth are the target group. So this may be for as an introduction of the organization. And for the youth-to-youth program, Terre, Hommes Schweiz doesn't implement itself, but it's supporting the local partners in various ways, not only with financially, but also with like knowledge transfer, and this especially in youth participation and psychosocial support. And when I started on the desk of psychosocial support, I was looking for something to give to the youth, because in my project visits, I saw how much the youth were giving to each other, how they supported each other. And I was looking for an approach and came to the social, to SFA. And as I had a workshop with Therese, I asked her, Therese, would you be interested to introduce solution-focused approach in our projects? And then I give over to Therese. What you said then, Therese?
Well, you asked me, do you think it could work? And my answer was, I don't know. I remember I said, we have to try, and it's up to the participants to decide whether it is helpful or not.
Okay. Yes. And this was in 2007. And then, because the answer you gave, we decided to have first a curriculum workshop. We invited youth from Zimbabwe, from Tanzania and South Africa, and asked them. We worked a week with them. And yes.
Because it's so important. If you want to start something like that, you need a board. You need a head of an organization that is really open to new ideas and can cope with working without knowing exactly the outcome. If you don't have that, it's very difficult. And that's what really, I think Irene did a wonderful job. It worked with the Edison Basel.
Yes, I was supported. I said, maybe we can introduce this, but can we have just a workshop to make sure? And then we had the workshop. And as it turned out, the youth were very interested. They said, yes, that's exactly what we need. And together with them in this week, we worked out a curriculum for a workshop for 3 modules. And we started the year after. Is there anything you want to add, Therese, to this?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment.
So I'm just really interested to hear more about the detail of how that worked. So how they responded to the workshop, and this moving from knowing what is needed to working with what they want. So what was it about the workshop that Therese delivered that really enabled people to want to proceed with introducing the solution-focused approach?
For my part is to be very curious and listen first. I just think, did we know what is needed? We had our best hope that the youth will take out some strengths and some ideas on how to give support. The needed, that's what we needed from them to hear. In order to support others, what do you need? And I think we asked that not only in the curriculum workshop, that was on our mind, the first thing, listen what they, yes. Of course, we had our program. We wanted to share with them tools, communication tools. That was not negotiable. Yet on how to apply and things like that, how to meet the youth, they were the experts.
So how was the program implemented?
It wasn't as easy as that, because after we asked the youth, we knew that, you know, if we just train the youth and they come back home, they need some support as well. The directors need to know what they learned, because the youth won't be the same youth, you know, that left home. So we had, after we had the curriculum workshop with the youth, we had a workshop with the directors, and we presented them the results, and we said, this is what your youth want. So is there anything you think we should add? Is there any thoughts you have? And it was in a way very ceremonial. They signed that they will support the youth, you know. They gave their ideas, because of course they had also their ideas. And only after that did we start. And as I said before, we had 3 modules for 1 week where youth from the project countries where Terre, you know, works, where they met. And yeah, we just introduced the solution-focused approach, and as Terre said, always with practical examples from their everyday life. So
I'd like to add something, Irene, before you continue. Yeah. That the idea was really, it must be from bottom up as well as from top down. And what seems to me very important, we had somebody from the middle level of the whole organization, not the directors, not the youth, but somebody in between.
Project coordinators, yeah.
Thank you. And that seems to me, this structure was very important and helped actually to, yes, that it could go on. And once it didn't help. We had an experience in Central America, where it just didn't work out.
So how did you manage that situation?
The one that didn't work out?
Yeah.
We let go.
Okay.
They are the expert. It was too hard it changed the hierarchy of organization somehow. And if there is no space for that, I don't know, but I had the feeling there was nothing else left than let go. I don't know, Irene, how you would describe it.
Yeah, it wasn't, it was like partner organizations didn't have to work solution focused. It was an offer from TDH, and of course most of them took it and were really enlightened, but they didn't have to take it. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. But coming back to the modules, the youth or the participants of the modules, they were selected, and they were selected under youth that were especially working youth group leaders that were very, very interested, motivated. And for some, it was also a language issue, to speak English. And right now, I would like to give over to Abu or Mlungisi and Drusilla to say how they experienced the first module, because they were there.
The first module was very hard for me because I think I went back home. If we can go on a scale from 1 to 10, I would say that I was at 3.5. It was so difficult. There is the language barrier. Yes, I do speak English, and I grew up in Zimbabwe where they speak English, though I'm Mozambican. But first of all, the way that Irene and Therese speak English is different from how the pronunciation. It was even better with Irene and worse with Therese, and I was like, oh my God. So I couldn't get most of the things. And the whole thing to me did not make a lot of sense. So yeah, it wasn't easy. But then from the interactions that we have after the first module, because in between we would exchange emails with Irene and do some activities that she suggested we do, some practical activities, and then the second module was done. That's when things started to make sense to me, and I was like, wow, this is very interesting.
So I'm really interested to hear, did you have any knowledge of the solution-focused approach before you started the training?
I think I wouldn't say that I had knowledge about the solution-focused approach, but there are things that I used to do in a solution-focused way, but I did not know that I was practicing solution-focused approach.
Okay. So when it started to make sense, tell me about that. What was it that it enabled it to make sense, and what did you notice about it that really pleased you?
When it started to make sense, it really helped me in my own personal life, because when I started understanding it, I then started practicing with myself and my two daughters, my siblings who used to live with me. And so it was something very, maybe I could say very artistic. It was some sort of a special art that I know of, doing things that other people don't know. And I started thinking deeply about my own life and the things that were going on in my life, and the best way to find a solution for myself. Because by that time, I was living on a base of counseling from other people, like, oh, okay, so this is what's happening in your life. The best thing to do is this. So yeah, when it started making sense, I really had a turnover, a very positive turnover in my life.
Yeah, wow. So that personal experience first, and then can you tell us a little bit more about what happened after you did the training and the program, how you took that out into your work with young people?
By that time, I was working as an administrative assistant. So when it started to make sense, and I started to watch things that were happening at my organization. It was an organization that works against gender-based violence, and they offer psychosocial support. I mean, the traditional psychosocial support, counseling, and many other services. So the very first thing that I learned was how to do counseling using solution-focused approach. And so I started to look at the way that counseling was done at my organization, and it was totally different. It was done in a way that clients would come in with their problems, and the counselors were the one to give solutions. And in most cases, I would say 80% of the cases, this did not work. So there was always this question, why is this continuing? Why are we not being able to support our clients? So then I made a decision that, okay, I have to do something. Maybe I should change the department that I'm working in. So I talked to my project coordinator that I was interested in working with programs, working with the youth, and they created a position called Youth to Youth, the Youth to Youth Corner. And so the Youth to Youth Corner on solution-focused approach. But then it's something that was taken as Drusilla's thing. It was something on its own. And there was another journey to go to bring it inside the organization for first even the project coordinator to understand what it was, my own colleagues, because it wasn't easy for me to change the way that things were done in that organization, just like that.
Yeah, so how did you do that? What did you do to enable that change?
I tried to make my other colleagues understand what SFA is. And I would always invite them for meetings where we would talk about SFA, but it wasn't easy. One and another person were interested and they wanted to know more. Most of the times I have to beg my colleagues to come and hear what I wanted to share with them. And slowly, some of my colleagues started to get interested, and we started implementing together. Even the way that we talk to each other, we would talk in a solution focus. So it was some sort of practice. And it was easier for clients to accept it than my colleagues at work, because they really liked the approach. You know, some people would come there and say, okay, I wanted a solution, but after talking, after explaining to them everything, they would understand and say, oh yeah, I think this is the best way of doing it. So practice made it possible for me to integrate it at the organization.
Thank you, Drusilla. Yeah, and I'm really interested to hear from Abu and Mungisi as well, to hear about your experience of the program and what that led to for you.
Okay, I have a different experience in that. For me, By the time when SFA was introduced for me, I was still with an organization in Zimbabwe called MASO, Migrants Aid Service Organization. So apparently, MASO had been involved in the planning program, that planning week that Irene talked about in Tanzania. And then we had other guys who had already been trained. For example, Tobizotwa, Chavisani, amongst others who had been trained earlier. So when they were trained earlier, when they came back to the organization, I was part and parcel of the youth groups. So I was one of the youth leaders. And as a youth leader, my job was to make sure that we plan programs for other young people within the Migrants province. The Migrants province is about 1/10 of the Zimbabwean population of the Zimbabwean geographical area. So when they came back from the SFA training, Module 1, they came back and cascaded what they learned to us. So during that time when they cascaded what they learned also in their Module 1, I'll be very honest, it was not clear, it was not easy. Why? I think even for them, they were still learning. And because of the zeal and enthusiasm, they're also trying to make sure that they're cascading to us. So it was not easy. I think one of the misconceptions that I got when they came in cascaded was to think that when you're using SFA, a solution-focused approach, there is a way of doing things that there is one answer, such that I had a feeling like it's prescriptive. If you don't really do it this way, you are wrong. Unlike understanding in the way of saying that, no, the client is the expert, and the client can have various ways of dealing with that particular issue. And in the client dealing in his own way, that decision that they make might not be palatable to you, or might not be how you are perceiving or thinking about it. So fast forward, when they were trained Module 1, Module 2, Module 3, their understanding was now better. And each time they were coming from their training, they would cascade to us. So by the time I met Therese and Irene, I was more like at a different space. I had a smaller understanding of SFA. It was not really good, but at least I had an understanding that there's SFA. And even I was also trying to utilize the small tools that I'd learned. So, but I was not doing it correctly because I was still trying, but at least I was at a different pitch.
Using the solution-focused approach, what difference does that make to young people, do you think?
In Africa, there is always something that is common. Something that is common is that when you go to somebody and you are looking we have a challenge rather, that particular person that you are going to present your issue to is supposed to be in a way to give you the solution. So the difference that it made is that with SFA now, it brought back to you as the client a bit of a challenge to say, you are the expert. You understand better your situation. You have got the strengths. You have the resources. So somehow, the counselor is only coming in to ask you helpful questions that would help you now to understand your situation better and for you to come up with a solution. So what difference make? It empowered young people in a different way. So in this particular way, you're not being empowered like financially, you're not being empowered with a solution that is going to work now. But tomorrow again, you're going back to the particular person and say, you helped me the other time, help me again. With this empowerment that you have, utilizing your own strengths and resources, you are able to say, to a certain extent, you don't easily go to the next person for assistance, but you can always deal with it at your own level, such that when you're going to ask from other people, we have already tried, and it's not every time that we're going to ask others. Another difference that it brought is that it cemented the peer-to-peer, kind of helping, because by that time I was still very, very young. Imagine you're in your 20s, it's all about young people. We are assisting each other as young people. So as we interact together as young people, we are trained as young people, we're empowered as young people, we have challenges as young people, that we understand better as young people, we are assisting each other at our level. So that's the kind of difference that SFA brought before these other big changes. But this particular one of saying within our own clubs, we are able to identify our own strengths. we're able to utilize them to even satisfy ourselves, like in the activities that we do, in mixing up, in facing certain challenges, in just, in our language, we call it the vibe, just improving the vibe within the young people's groups. That's the kind of difference that it brought initially.
Yeah, I love that real focus on empowerment and improving the vibe amongst young people, and just to highlight that the power of that peer-to-peer, that youth-to-youth. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, allow me to say, sorry, before you move on, allow me to say, SFA did not come in as something totally new. Okay. Yes, the framing was new, but it was not totally new in that we are already doing certain things. For example, in our African culture, we already have solution-focused programs. We had solution-focused stories. In Africa, stories are a way of empowering. So what it helped us now was to no longer focus on the negative side. So we're now selecting the stories, selecting the proverbs, selecting the games that were solution-focused, and we ran using those ones because it was now an interesting issue. As Drusilla is also alluding in the chat there, where you were saying I was assisting here to understand in the local language. How was I doing it to make it better? We're utilizing what was already working within our own culture and content.
Yeah.
So that's the other interesting thing that SFA
really interesting. Yeah. So enabling you to utilize what's already working within your culture, and yes, I've got a particularly interest at the moment about stories and the stories that we tell. And it just, what you've said just really highlighted that, about the stories that we choose to tell, and recently kind of described them as strengthening stories. Yeah. Thank you. Abu, what's your experience and thoughts?
Well, I started from a slightly different stand from my colleagues. When I joined, I wasn't a youth, so that was quite different. And when people were selected to join the SFA course, I didn't want to join, and it was Marcus, who was our project coordinator, who insisted. He said, Abu, you have to take that course. By that time, I was what Therese described, a middle person, because I was a project coordinator in one of the partner organizations of Terre. So I started the SFA training from that perspective as a middle person working in the organization at program level, at project level with the youth. And so when I went to the first training, I had already attended a few of platform meetings that Therese Schweiz organizes with the partner organizations. And in these platform meetings, they did talk about the solution-focused approach. So I did have some briefings already from those meetings. And when I went to the training, I really was interested to find out, to know a bit in detail what it was about. The other background, I must say, is that by that time, I already had started a graduate course in Uganda, and I was studying counseling psychology. Mm-hmm. And therefore, I had already been introduced to a number of methodologies, counseling methodologies, approaches. So I had really this broader view from the other participants, and I was trying really to connect the dots and try to see how this whole fits within our context. at the end of the first module, even with the background I had, I must acknowledge that it wasn't that clear. And I think that was probably due to the methodologies that were used in teaching, because it was quite different. My first training was not from Irene and Therese. I got that training from the first people who graduated from the first group. So it was very innovative and very catching for me, but several things were left hanging. And I must say, one of the things that really stuck in my head is we talked a lot about the mindset. The stories that were shared, the parables and lots of discussions were really pointing to the need for people, whether the youth or we who were already working with the youth, to change our mindset and our way of looking at the situations we are going through and doing the things we were doing. So that was really the most thing that stuck out of in my head from the first training. And so it raised my interest to learn more, to do more. I went back, we did some practice tasks. We came back to the second training and things got much, much better. Irene was there. So it was really making more sense. So that for me was my first experience with the solution-focused approach.
Thank you. So what started to make sense? What became clear for you?
What became clear is looking at the way we were working with the youth, with the people in the organizations, where we were. It was easy, for instance, to realize the things other people were not doing well, that were not doing right, and instead of recognizing the little things that they were doing right and that could count in our relationships and our work. So that was some of the things I started to realize, that maybe instead of investing in the failures and weaknesses of people, we should start investing in the things that they are doing well. They are even if they are small, but these little successes, these little things they are doing well matter, and they could be life-changing experiences for them. And also to appreciate the uniqueness of people and the strengths of people. Like you're working with young people, some of them have experiences of drug abuse, some have been violent in their environment, and some of them are experiencing stigma because of the situations they are in. And without the solution-focused mindset, it is easy to look to them as victims, as people who have nothing to offer, as people who have to be helped and supported and given everything. And so this is a very important shift in the way we started to work with the youth, like trying to find out from them what are their strengths, what can they offer, what do they have, and how can we use that to change their situations. Yeah.
So by using the solution-focused approach and changing that mindset, and rather than looking at what's not working, with these young people and these young people in difficult situations, what did you start to see? What did you start to notice about them?
So it took some time for us as organizations, as people in the organization to reach to that, because it's really hard to change that in people. But as soon as we started to do that, we saw really, really very big changes. Like the motivation of the young people, the youth to engage in our projects increased. You could see that they really wanted to be there, not as burdens. They wanted to be recognized as useful, as important. And so the more we gave them that space and that recognition, the more we could feel their motivation increased. They were happy with what they were doing. And that really increased the results of what we wanted to achieve with the project.
Wow. And are you using the solution-focused approach with each other as colleagues as well as the youth? Yeah.
One of the things I really, really wanted from the beginning was not just to be a listener when I went to the training. I really was keen. I wanted to practice things. So as soon as I came back to my organization, I was trying to bring people together. And as a project coordinator, I had that position where I could bring the team together and say, I want to orient you on this tool. I want to orient you on this. And I took every opportunity I had to orient my colleagues on the things that I had learned. And of course, I also wanted to see that they are implementing some of those when they go to the field. So I was very careful trying to follow up and see what is happening when they try to apply that with the youth. And at the end of the day, I must say what made a big difference. Mlungisi talked about this attitude here where people come to you, they have an issue, they are like, tell me, what should I do? And you just have to tell them. And they come to you, they know you are learned, you have gone to this degree and so on. So you tell me, you know more. You have to give me your advice. And with the solution-focused approach, then you see, when you give people advice, even if it works, you solve the problem. You help them to get away from that problem. But the difference I started to see is that every time I apply the solution-focused approach in my conversation with people and I try to let them decide and decide what is best for them, then after some time you meet them and they are like, I think you have changed me. So the solution-focused approach is changing the person. It's not, The other way is you work on the problem, you find a solution, but the person remains the same. And with the solution-focused approach, the person doesn't remain the same. The person is changed. The person is empowered. So that's a big difference. So the people will come to you and say, you don't know how much you have helped me. And I didn't do anything but of course, you help them to realize the things they didn't have. You have built their confidence, you have built their capacity to make choices and decisions, and that is really changing the person.
And really interested to hear, the change that happens from your experience of the youth that you work with, I'd love to hear some examples from each of you of the change that you see and that they share with you.
May I add something? Listening to the three of them, from the beginning, there was this demand, give us a handout, give us a line or how to introduce. And I don't know how, we resisted. I said, it's not possible. You are. I think you mentioned the uniqueness of every person. You can't go along a manual and then it's done. And well, it just touched my heart when I heard they struggled, and we knew it was difficult. We knew after the first model they will go home and were confused. And you have to cope with that. You have to trust they will work it out. At the end, we did a sort of a manual, but very different from all the manuals. We collected all the manuals that were around at that time. I don't remember the names, but we then decided to give them something, yet not. If you meet them, do in first session that, second session that. So yes, we wrote something, yet after, I don't know, how many years? I don't know.
3 years.
3 years.
After 3 years.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that because I think that's very important, not to. They also had to cope with, you ask for the structure. Well, I'm a very unstructured person. I knew, I always had the idea what I wanted to share, but I never had this structure exactly. We went with the flow of the group and reacted immediately to what was presented in order to get cooperation.
Remember our first program? I thought, because, coming from Terre, and I, of course, it also costs a lot. So I have to give proof what we did. And so I wrote the program, and Therese said, oh, that's okay, but we never worked along the program. And I think after a while, we didn't write the program. We just went there, wherever it was. We discussed what we wanted to, to bring. And then we first listened what the participant wanted.
Yeah.
And Terre, you asked what changes we started to notice. As a project coordinator, I was not really exposed that much to individual youth coming to me to seek direct help or counseling. And so I had to work with what I had. And one thing that I started to apply and see the change was in the way we were doing our trainings, for example. I had to learn a lot from Irene and Terre's facilitation skills. And it made a big difference, the way we structured our trainings with the youth, the way we organized the contents, and the way we delivered that content, the interactions in the classroom started to change, because we wanted to make sure that we give them that space to decide and say what they have and contribute to the processes and the contents in the trainings. The other part also where we started to see changes was in the way we worked with the groups of young people. We we wanted, we had groups of youth, and with the solution-focused approach introduced, we started to question some of the ways we dealt with them in the groups, how we formed our groups, how we structured the groups. We started to give them more responsibilities, and then with the youth to youth, we were like, well, we should give the youth capacities so they can also be actors, not just receivers. We started to train them as peer facilitators, peer educators. They took in more responsibilities in the clubs, in the youth, in the peer groups, and structuring their interactions in the groups. So a lot of things started to change, really. And even the way the staff went to do their supervision and interact with the groups and provide support, the language that we started to use, like we want people to complement each other. We talk about exceptions, we start to using scales, and we start to formulate WH questions and so on. So,
and what was the impact of these changes? What did you notice? And you really encouraged this peer-to-peer and training the youth as well.
You know, the reach of our programs at this moment is quite big. Every time I go to a partner organization and I go and visit a youth group, I'm really amazed. The confidence is amazing. Their assertiveness, they know what they want and they say it. They take on roles and responsibilities. They lead their own activities. They know they can plan things and they implement them. And sometimes they don't even ask support from the partner organizations. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, wow. That really is amazing. Yeah. Thank you, Abby. And Drusilla and Mungisi, I'm really interested to hear from you as well. The difference the solution-focused approach has made.
Allow me to say that one of the people that was well trained in SFA for me in the initial stages was Ntombi Zodwa, usually called Mrs. Revisai. So she was the project coordinator at the time where people like Tabisan and others were the young people. So Ntombi Zodwa, when she came back, she had really understood the concept. And one of the changes that we realized is that she was more positive. So as she was more positive, what change did that bring? It was, her positivity was contagious to the youth groups. So now, the way she would, you know, when you get to a workshop, usually you want to talk about fears and hopes. You would realize that most of your staff, it was now talking about what are your best hopes, no longer about the negativeness. So even when coming into the workshop setup, you know, what was really different is that the positivity, the mood that was there was very good. Another change, besides with all what Abu has said, the other change that I realized is that within us as young people, we were getting it easier, slowly but sure, to be able to realize the positive things in our lives, small steps leading to bigger changes. I remember one of the things that we used to do is that we were now using even the SF principles wrongly, but it was positive. Let me explain what I mean. Even during lunch, during breaks, whatever we're doing, you would realize that people will be throwing in those assumptions. If it's not working, do something else. The client is the expert, you know, change is inevitable. I really cannot give a very good example for you to understand because it was in our language. But what I can tell you is that we were using those assumptions even in a joking manner, at times even using it wrongly. But at the end of the day, after some time of practice, we're now using it rightfully and no longer like a sarcastic way. But using it in a sarcastic way, what I think with the positive things that came, using it sarcastically, is that the acceptance of the SFA within the youth groups became something that was now easy, because we joke around, about SFA and so forth. So amongst many other things that were there is that we were more positive because of the mentor that we had. And then also we're able to realize the small changes within our clubs, within our challenges that we face. So it sort of like empowered us as young people, and it helped us to keep on moving, because you are able to realize, to say, no, but I was there. I was on 2, I'm now on 3. With SFA, it makes you to appreciate even the smallest of the changes. At times we want big changes, but we are saying it doesn't just become big, it starts from the small needs. So as we're doing our activities as young people, in our programs, whatever we did, it was now easy to see where we're coming from and where we're going. So the biggest virtue again that we learned was patience, patience, patience. And that was enough to propel us in some of the challenges that we faced.
Yeah, thank you. I love the idea that the humour and the kind of joking about it. That's a bit like in my house with my children about the solution-focused approach. We kind of joke about it, but it happens. So Drusilla, I'm really interested to hear from you too.
Yeah, as Mlungisi was saying, that when their coordinator went back, she was more positive. That's what happened to me. To myself, I became more positive, and I tried to make people understand the change that was in me first, and then try and have a different mindset first about themselves and the way that they treat other people. Because now I became more respectful to other people. I now knew that, okay, we are all battling our own battles. Every other person have got their own battles, and you have to be more kind to other people, show more love, and so forth and so forth. But to do that, you should love yourself first and do things for your own well-being. So yeah, when I came back, I was more positive, and what I wanted to do was make people understand the SFA mindset, which is something that could not happen, from one day to the other. It's gradual, it takes time. And I was not lucky, because the coordinator who accepted SFA at the organization, who had gone for the first briefing, was now away, and we had a new coordinator who understood nothing about it. So it was sort of a challenge to the colleagues and to the superiors at work, but with the youth, it was very interesting, because you see people getting interested because you are appreciating them, even though they're at their very, very lowest moments in life. You're appreciating them. You are showing them that they are experts. They are human beings. They have resources. They have, the complementing part of it. All those things, and they feel ownership of their own lives, and become positive, especially after hearing my personal story, because in most of the conversations I always used to tell my own experience in a different way, slowly. And so implementing it was not that easy, but was interesting, because youth now felt that they have a space they can be listened to. Their ideas are worth, that what they think about their lives is correct, because there was nothing, especially in my society, that thing of, okay, you are young people, you don't really understand anything about life. This is not how it is. You should do it this way. All those things. And when they come to someone who really understands them and appreciate them and give them support on their hopes and their dreams, it is very, very warming, and it makes you a different person. Even with people who thought that, okay, I'm going to this organization to look for support and I'll have some counseling or some material support. After talking to them, most people, they were very, very grateful. And another thing that I was trying to do is, reflecting or looking at my own life experience, I would think, okay, if by that time that I was going through this in my life, if I had someone in front of me, what is it that I wanted that person to tell me? What is it that I wanted that person to show me? Because I think when I look back, I think that's the only thing that I wanted. I mean, like, okay, Drusilla, you can do this. It's possible with your own resources. But there was some time in my life that I thought, okay, so you did not study further, you did not do this, you won't make it. And in our society, people tend to be more negative than positive. So the positive part of it, and the reaction that you see in people after experiencing SFA for some time, mostly the youth, it was very, very, very warming. Mm-hmm. And I would add on to say that it's still very simple to work with youth on SFA than with adults. In my experience.
I love using SFA with young people too. Yeah. So it's interview is soon going to come to close. So I would like to ask you, before we finish, what would be the most useful question that I could ask you as a final question?
I think for me, one of the useful questions that would be helpful is to say, how are you able to sustain the SFA mindset right now and going forward? Yeah.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. So how are you able to sustain the SFA mindset?
And having found people like Ngisi, like Abu, and like Drusilla, I know that the SFA mindset will live on in Africa. And we also, and Terre also has people in Latin America who have the same role. So I can relax. I know they do their job, and I know they do it really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, at an individual level, one way to maintain the SFA mindset is to be able to continue to read. I believe there's a lot more to read. When there's an opportunity to attend maybe international conferences and any other opportunities to keep on learning and refreshing, I'm taking advantage of that. But also my role makes it easy for me to maintain the SFA mindset, because every now and then we train SFA, and then it's always unique for every group that you train. The kind of questions that they ask you, the kind of responses from the participants is always interesting, but it's at times it's challenging because they'll ask you very difficult questions. So my job makes it easy now. The annual platforms within TDH, we've got an annual SFA platform where we meet with other practitioners and youth personnel and young people as well within our project countries. And I'm lucky to be having 2 countries, so it means double training, double exposure, so it's actually an interesting one. So that's how I'm maintaining to keep on, having this SFA mindset with me. And with the way now with how we do things within TDH, it also makes it very, very easy. At times unconsciously, you simply do SFA because it's now how we do things.
Thank you, Ngisi.
Sorry, I was saying I'm very grateful for the idea that TDH had of creating our positions, because that way it's easier to keep the SFA mindset ball rolling. you know, as Mlungisi was saying, we are working together with our partner organizations and always supporting them, exchanging experience and a lot more. And with that, there are trainings within organizations where not only the staff, but the young people who are beneficiaries are being trained in SFA, and they really, really like it. They use it, and most of the youth, they are always eager to know more and to learn more. I'm always receiving messages or calls when they're trying to talk to their peers and they have a challenge. Okay, how can I go about this and so forth? So we are still going, and I believe that it will still continue going, because we are now a bigger family in the SFA community, and we are always learning together, learning new things, new ways of doing things. So that's how it's going to be sustained, because more young people are being exposed to it, and they are really using it.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you.
There's something I would like to add to this input on the question that has been put by Mlungisi. You know, Therese Hommes Schweiz did not just authorize implementation of the youth-to-youth program. As an organization, it has integrated solution-focused approach in a way that is really, really sustainable. So the ways of working of the organization, the communication with the partner organizations that are receiving funding, the type of relationships we are having with them are all really based on a solution-focused mindset and practice. So it's not really difficult for us as staff of Therese Hommes Schweiz to think about how we are going to continue the solution-focused approach. We mentor the staff of our partner organizations, but also we are using a solution-focused approach among ourselves. And so it's alive, it's an experience that we are living. We are not just doing it as a work-related task. We are really living it.
Yeah, it's alive, it's living, and we're experiencing it. I love that. Thank you. So just, Therese, is there anything that you wanted to add before we finish?
I was asking myself, how do I keep up the solution-focused mindset? And I realized by giving me the permission to be sometimes not solution-focused and have the experience you can get back. That's just the only thing I want to add.
Yeah, I like that. Oh, wow. Well, this is the end. I think I could just keep talking to you for hours. It's just been an absolutely wonderful experience to spend the time with you, and yeah, real privilege. So thank you so much to each of you. It's been a real joy.